Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
All right, good morning. Seeing that it is after 7:30 now, I will call this meeting of the Fitchburg Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission to order. Phil, if you could take a roll call for us. You're muted if you're talking, Phil.
I sure am. Yep, I can go ahead and do that. Pull up the meeting membership or the committee membership real quick. We have Andrew Potts.
Present.
Kelly Jetzer.
Present.
Dawn Krim.
Present.
Ryan Husselman.
Present.
Jim Denham.
Here.
Joe Maldonado.
Here.
And Mark Hamilton let us know he is not going to be able to join. So we have everyone accounted for.
I'm having trouble pulling my agenda up at the moment. I'm assuming the minutes would be the next item on our agenda.
They will. I'm also pulling up the agenda packet real quick so I can share that. Sorry about that. Go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see, where is...
Got the committee room all to myself this morning.
I'm not finding the application on the... Here we go. Okay, is everyone seeing that?
Yep, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we have our minutes from December 10th of 2024. Those were distributed in the packet. Is there any?
Yeah. We'll start with a motion to approve in a second.
Yep.
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion by Ryan to approve. Is there a second?
Second. Dawn.
Okay, got Dawn as the second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Item number 3 on our agenda is public appearances for non-agenda items. I have no one else here in the room with me. I don't believe we have anyone else online. Phil, has anyone indicated to you that they intended to join on any topics not on the agenda?
No one has, no.
Okay, and I will move on to agenda item number 4, which is reviewing our 2025 Bike and Pedestrian Commission priority list. I believe this was actually going to be Mark handling that, but since Mark was not...
Yeah, I can give a...
Go ahead, Phil.
Sorry, go ahead. I can give a quick overview. This is the same list of priorities for the Commission for 2025 that was included in the December packet. Mark and I did chat a bit about it. There's been pretty minimal changes. I think there's more that was discussed than actually adjusted in the minutes or in the document itself. Mark just wanted to make sure that this was shared again. It is kind of the list of priority items for the commission to kind of on an ongoing basis, but to focus on 2025 as well.
Okay. I did have a note from Mark just saying that he felt that this list was complete and ready to be utilized moving forward for the year. Were there any comments on any of the items on the list?
Yeah, this is Kelly. I thought we had talked about changing the wording of that first priority so that it didn't seem like we were just trying to get a prize, but that we were trying to improve everything about biking in Fitchburg and walking in Fitchburg to, and that the prize would come if we did the right things.
I mean, I think that's my recollection as well, is that I agree with Kelly. I think we were doing the items because they were the right thing to do to improve bike and pedestrian connectivity within the city. And if we were awarded gold, all the better.
Yeah, I'll circle back with Mark on that. I'll make sure that I actually have the right. I'm pretty confident I've got the right version of the priorities here. My memory was that that was the discussion. Ultimately, the final decision was to keep the language because the priority was still. I think there were a couple comments about not wanting to deprioritize getting to gold, but I know that there was kind of some circling around that question. I'll confirm with Mark and we'll make sure that reflects. I'll look back at the discussion from December as well.
That's good. Good comment by Kelly. I guess given that, I don't know that we were really looking on any formal action on this, were we, Phil, or was this?
We were not, no. I mean, the group already kind of informally voted to approve this in December as a priority list, so it's just kind of a refresher and checking to see if there is any additional conversation to be had.
Just circling back, I thought that what the committee decided was that we would change the language of that first priority to emphasize action, not a prize.
Got it.
So is there a way we could talk about that today to see if the committee as a whole is in agreement on that, or is it just me?
So I guess I would say
set up. So currently the priority is listed as Fitchburg Gold Journey, address path deficiencies, submit application to Bike League. So instead the priority would be Fitchburg Gold Journey. I mean, address 2019 and 22, or I think it's 2023 deficiencies. Are you looking for more specific actions than that, like calling out each individual deficiency, or something else?
I would say describing the deficiencies and what actions we plan. So addressing seems kind of loose. If there's things that we're going to actually fix or priorities to fix those deficiencies, those should be listed rather than it being all about earning the prize, I think.
So we have between 2019 and 2023, I think in 19 there were 5 things they mentioned for us to continue or improve, and in 2023 it was 6 things. So potentially that means that this priority, this on a list of 10 priorities for the year for the commission, number 1 would be 11 different things, or I guess it'd probably be some overlap, some 8 or 9. Is there concern about that getting too lengthy and cumbersome? And some will have overlap with the other 9 items on this list, but I think that was where Mark just mentioned address deficiencies, because it's a little bit more streamlined. But do we want to have that full list of deficiencies called out in this one priority kind of header.
I guess if I knew what the deficiencies were, that would help to know if this was, if it was a good idea to list them all. Or if all of them are sort of taken care of in all of our other priorities, then that would not be necessary. But it just feels like having our very first priority to be to try to win a recognition rather than to provide appropriate, safe, usable infrastructure for every user in the city on bike or foot.
So I just throw out there, I think most of the deficiencies are addressed in the priority list. I think that's largely where the remaining items came from, was that priority list. But I do agree with Kelly that I think maybe some of it's even just kind of the phrasing of like Fitchburg Gold Journey makes it seem like that is the goal, is to get gold, as opposed to the overarching goal being to improve bike and ped infrastructure in Fitchburg by addressing the deficiencies that were highlighted. I mean, that's the document that we have that told us what was wrong, and it happens to come from the Bike League, who also happens to give us a gold medal if we do well. But I'm wondering how much of it is maybe semantics of that. Go ahead.
May I make a suggestion? I think maybe if that particular priority of the goal journey was moved down the list, maybe towards the end, it would indicate that the other priorities related to bikeability for its own sake and pedestrian walkability for its own sake are more important than the prize itself. I know it's kind of cosmetic, but I think that might address just the optics of the prize being the most important thing.
I agree.
I agree as well.
I'm fine with that.
This is Jim. I would also, I like the language address and work to eliminate. I mean, I think Kelly's right. Addressing is pretty loose, but if we say address and work to eliminate.
Okay, you got that, Phil? So.
Yep. Yeah. So moving it down the list, adjust that language as Kelly and Jim called out, and just kind of make sure where. I should ask this. I don't know if I'm just sharing this one document or if I switch over to a different document in Adobe here. Are you seeing that now? Or do you still just see the agenda?
No,
Yes, we see it.
We see
okay. So yeah, that's where I think a lot of what was in our 2019 scorecard, the deficiencies there either have been addressed, like repealing the mandatory bike registration ordinance, or are somehow reflected in that list. Improving the bike network. Bike parking we know I think that was in Mark's priorities list here. Monitoring infrastructure, certainly parking is a part of that. The things from 2023, one is a much more extensive list. But two, I don't know that it's been as completely incorporated in each individual priority. So that was kind of what I was pulling this up to look at. There's a lot more specific policies like lowering speed limits on residential streets to 20 miles an hour or less. This gets a little bit more specific than the guidance we got from 2019. But we can make sure that there is overlap here, and then certainly just adjusting the language to say address and work to eliminate the deficiencies.
Address and work to eliminate unresolved deficiencies, since, as you pointed out, we have addressed some of them.
Got it. Okay, yep, I got notes on all that. Anything else from the list of priorities for this year to discuss?
I agree that item should probably not be the first one in the list, particularly considering that we are the Bike and Pedestrian Commission, and that gold journey is specifically from the Bike Fed, and it's very bike centric. So maybe moving up the bike ped plan update to number one might be the number one thing.
I agree, or safety. Let's just make sure we don't do safety third, which is a tagline for a book I read about traffic engineering.
I thought about that, safety first being the first one, that might be a good option too.
Okay. Do you think you have enough to go on, Phil? And I guess just check.
I sure do.
Do we want to do safety first? Just kind of move the whole list up one.
Sure, and we can drop the gold journey down to maybe 4 or 5.
Sure.
And I will confirm this with Mark as well. My recollection was that he didn't necessarily intend for this to be a ranked list, but I know that it does come across that way, so we'll adjust some things accordingly.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the Bike and Ped Commission priorities? If not, I will move on to agenda item 4B, which is the update on the B-cycle expansion. I'll turn it back over to Phil.
All right. Pull up this map real quick. I don't believe, did I include this in the packet? We have, I did. So yeah, in the packet I've got just a quick rundown map of where things stand with B-cycle stations. So we have the seven B-cycle stations that we initially set up with CETA and the Chamber providing the sponsorships. We then have been expanding that with the TAP grant funding, and we've got 9, I guess technically 11 new stations if you count the library, community center, and senior center as 3 separate ones. So we're up to an 18 station network in Fitchburg. We got about 24 docks left to place, funded by the TAP grant. So I met with B-Cycle yesterday. Their previous general manager of the Madison system, Helen Bradley, when they were purchased by Bicycle Transit Solutions, she was moved up to their development director, so she's not working with us directly anymore. We have a new general manager for the program named Chris Nielsen, who's coming over from nonprofit management and some other relevant work. But I met with Chris and with Mike Krieger, one of their kind of tech specialists, to talk about where we are and what we're looking to accomplish in this year, which primarily is just getting this TAP grant done, get these final 24 stations placed, or 24 docks placed, if possible, and wrap up the grant items. We did finally get an invoice from B-Cycle for all of last year's placements, so I'm going to submit that this week to get that paid to B-Cycle, and then we'll be able to get that reimbursed from the DOT as part 2 of the TAP grant reimbursements. With the 24 remaining docks, what we're looking at the most solid concrete location right now is the Capital City Trail parking lot at St. and McCoy. That's the green circle number 17 here on the right side. The delay there has been just kind of finding something that is that both our attorney and the Dane County's legal team finds is amenable to. It's a little bit of a weird situation because we're overseeing the program. This would be Dane County land, but B-Cycle is the entity doing all the installation and upkeep. So just kind of trying to find a way to make sure that that's adequately reflected in whatever contract permit is issued. But we're hoping to get that one done this year. All of the gray spots are other locations that we're looking at or we had looked at and are kind of stalled out. So definitely some other locations around the city we could add more B-cycle docks and just sort of trying to find the best option for that.
So, Phil, I do have a question on the Jamestown Eagle Park station. Because I'm curious what the holdup is there. Is that a City of Fitchburg Madison issue because the park's split, or I'm just curious because
that one is
land largely.
Yeah, Hugel Jamestown is less that there's been a holdup, and it's more just that it was a later addition to our discussion. So one of the drawbacks of Hugel Jamestown is that it would be kind of on the farthest reaches of the whole Madison system, and so anytime we're putting something at what would be the edge of the network, we're being a little bit cautious about that. Now we already did it with McGaw Park, but I think we're also not currently getting as many riders at McGaw Park as we had hoped. So the sites that we feel are most ideal for a B-cycle station are those where there are several different uses, and you've got both origins and destinations. So the perfect example is the library station, where you've got some multifamily residential right across the street. You've got the retail and more commercial and dining options with Oasis and the Atomic Koi and Chocolate Shop. There's the civic items, so destinations there as well as residential. People living nearby, so that's sort of the type of station that we'd like to have all over the city, and Fitchburg just isn't, for the most part, developed in a way that supports a lot of those. So Hugel Jamestown is one we are talking about. We had been in talks, or I guess B-Cycle had been in talks with a couple of businesses about them sponsoring last year, and those fell through. So with those stations not working, maybe we free up some docks to go over to Hugel Jamestown. We'll just have to talk with our internal team about what we want to do beyond the Cap City Trail. The nice thing there is it's an easy park and ride spot. You're not gonna bike there, park your bike, and then necessarily walk around from there. But parking in the lot and then riding around on our trails is definitely an option. But yeah, we'll just have to talk about what else happens. I think that the top ones, it is also an option if we feel like there aren't stations that are going to get a lot of ridership. It's an option to just say, hey, we're done, and tell the DOT we're not going to send any more reimbursements, but we have the funding to get these bikes out there, and we'd like to if we think they're viable options. So after the Capital City Trail parking lot, the other ones that we've been talking about that the city could control, we're not reliant on sponsorships, would be Hugel Jamestown Park, Southdale Park, Rose Commons Park. And those would probably be the next three strongest contenders.
Yeah, so I was just curious about Hugel Jamestown Park. I grew up right across the street from the park, so I have kind of an idea of its usage, and I know at least throughout the summer it has heavy usage of the park, especially since the kind of four-season park shelter was put in. It does get a lot of usage, plus it's in the middle of a residential neighborhood. In some ways that's maybe my complaint a little bit with the McCoy Road piece is it as you said, it's a great spot for recreational cycling, but that's it. Like no one lives in the wetland, at least not that we know of.
The Dolly Conservancy one? Yeah.
Well, that one or the number 17,
or 17, okay.
I mean, it's kind of out there on its own, and I think it's great for people who want to hop on the Cap City Trail, but people from Swan aren't going to walk up to that. That's probably too far for them. So that's why I kind of like the Jamestown Hugel. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and it's in a park that actually gets a fair amount of usage through the rec department. But Jim, I see you came off mute. So.
Yeah, just a quick question. When we're planning these, is there any kind of correlation between these placements and public transit? Because I could see people taking a bus, taking these to a public transit, something like that. Is there any kind of, when we're looking at future locations and possible locations, is public transit locations in proximity considered?
I would say it's been included in discussions. We haven't quantified it in any way. There has not been intentional effort to make sure that we're placing B-cycle stations near bus stops. Certainly is something we could consider there. I'm not as familiar with the bus network around Fitchburg, but I do believe there's at least one stop over near that park.
There is, it's a few blocks away. Go ahead, Kelly.
I would concur that the Jamestown Eagle feels like a more necessary spot than the Cap City Trail by McCoy. I also question Rose Common Park because that is completely residential, not served by bus, high income area, and the only people who would really be there are the folks who live real close by there, and there's not a destination other than that.
Yep.
Little.
Yeah, agreed. It is a, I don't know, quarter to half mile walk away from like the Starbucks Noodles and Company, but that's about it. I will say Rose Commons is one that has been brought up repeatedly just because, as you can see, we've got a pretty big gap between the stations near Fish Hatchery Road and the stations on Seminole, and we spent a long time looking for something viable in between there, and it's all low density residential, so there's really not a great option there. Rose Commons, I think, is the one that excited B-Cycle the most because of its proximity to Fish Hatchery. There was also, I'm forgetting the name of it now, Hawk Ridge Park, which is down in the kind of Seminole Forest area, but it has the same issue. It's strictly residential. Other than people within a 2 or 3 block radius, no one else is really going to know about it. But yeah, definitely it is a drawback of Rose Commons. It's a little bit of a drawback of Southdale Park as well, that it is kind of tucked away back there. So unless you live within a couple blocks, you're not really going to know about the Southdale Park one. But
Can I jump in? Yep. So I actually live right across the street from Rose Commons Park.
Okay.
And it is definitely high density, easy access to the bike path. I wonder if, just in terms of selecting our spots, thank you for that rationale. But I wonder, was there also any demand from that community? One question. Second question is, Chicory Park Meadows isn't on here. It's a little further away, but likely still high end, but still likely more traffic because that park has more multiple use opportunities. So it gets probably more traffic than the Rose Common Park, even though they both are neighborhood parks. But that one, because of its basketball court and tennis courts and play equipment and soccer fields, more people visit and might utilize the spot more. Just wanted to add that.
Yep, and it is directly on the Capital City Trail as well. So we did, when I talked with Chris and Michael yesterday, we did talk about Chicory Meadow Park as well. That's my mistake for forgetting to include that. One of the things that we're sort of throwing back and forth as we look at the different city parks, where it is just a park in a residential area. So McKee Farms Park has been our best station location, but it's the #1 most utilized park in the city. There's a ton of different uses there. It's also not far away from a little bit of commercial and dining. I don't know if people are really biking and then walking up to any of the restaurants or Walgreens or anything, but there is that proximity as well. Most of the other parks don't necessarily have as much traffic or as much going on as McKee Farms Park. So what we've been talking about is kind of the balance between if you are in a lower income area, are you putting a bike share network somewhere and still making it so that people can access it financially? Great, it's physically there, but do you have some type of mechanism set up for people to be able to get assistance with passes if they need it? We haven't figured that out yet. We did give Boys and Girls Club, the McKenzie Center, some passes last year with some money that was put in the city's budget for that purpose to have free passes available for the community. That was not included in this year's budget. So we're not going to be able to do that this year. Versus if you put in a high income area, people are more financially able to buy into the system. You're going to get more activity, but also if I'm living in a higher income neighborhood and I want to ride an electric bike, am I just going to buy my own, or am I going to use a bike share network? And that's, I don't have answers on that. I'm not nearly experienced enough. I don't think V-Cycle really, I didn't get the impression that they really know that they've done any kind of a study on what type of neighborhood is the most desirable for a station like this. I will say, in response to your question, Don, there has not been any, I haven't heard from anyone specifically about, hey, could you please put B-Cycle in this area? I know that there were some businesses that reached out to B-Cycle and to the chamber about some interest. I don't know that any neighborhood association presidents or individuals have done so. Mark certainly has had conversations with people about B-Cycle, and he could tell you if anyone in particular has requested it, but I'm not privy to those conversations.
Okay, that's helpful. I just thought since, the topic was brought up, I'd ask about demand as well. So thank you for that answer, Phil.
No, that's a good question. I'd like to have some info on it, but just haven't heard much.
I have one more proposed location that I don't see on here, and maybe I'm just missing it. The new hub, the new park that we're creating.
The new hub, that's number 15. It's right on Traceway. We have, so there's two different ways you can install these stations. One is that you pour a concrete pad and you bolt the docks directly into the concrete. The other one is that you put in some temporary, in theory, movable metal base plates. They're so heavy that you kind of need special equipment and multiple people to move them, so they're fairly permanent until you get the B-Cycle team out. But we have those metal base plates on the south edge of Traceway, so it's across from where the first phase of the hub is going to be constructed beginning this year. I'm not sure that there's going to be space at the hub for us to move them over on that side of Traceway permanently. They might remain on the south side, but that is city property. Okay. So we do have some docks there at the hub right now, and they'll certainly get more use once the hub is completed.
All right, thanks.
All right. Any additional discussion on the B-Cycle expansion? If not, move on to 4C, which is an update on public works projects impacting the bike and ped network.
Let me just look down to some notes I got for this. Ross wasn't able to join us this morning, but I reached out to him to get a few updates on things. I know at least Mark, maybe the whole commission had asked about the where the Badger State Trail crosses Seminole Highway and a flashing beacon there. Short answer to that is that I think Ross told us this last year, but any RRFB there would have to go into the capital improvements plan budget, into the CIP, and that isn't currently the case. I don't know if he's planning on putting funding for that into the CIP for 2026 for next year, but at least as of right now, there's no funding to put a beacon there. What they are doing is they're going to be painting that crossing, so that'll enhance visibility. I know the two biggest concerns there are, one, it's a really tough angle, and so some cyclists will just bike through rather than stopping and looking for traffic. But it's also not necessarily the most visible crossing. Painting that stretch at least should help with that, so drivers, as they're approaching, will see the paint and be aware of that. And we'll go from there. The other RFB question had to do with where the Badger State Trail crosses Lacey, so that completed redo of Lacey and Seminole. I know we put a beacon on the Badger State Trail crossing Lacey Road, and it still has not gone active yet. There's been an issue with needing some final pieces to be installed by MG&E. Ross said he unexpectedly had to go back to council for that item, so the payment to MG&E is going to be approved at council's meeting next week, the 11th, and then MG&E will be able to schedule the install to get that beacon working after that. So certainly we're hoping by the time that the spring cycling rush kicks off that beacon will finally be operational. The last big thing, this is certainly, people have got to be aware that right now there have been a lot of questions about federal funding and whether, with the federal funding freeze and then pulling it back and certain items being deprioritized. I know for some of my other work, the reversal in electric vehicles is probably going to have some impact on what I'm looking at on that side of things. I don't know of anything right now with cycling, with any federal funding that's going to impact us. What Ross said is that with existing road projects, we are good with funding for Fitch-Verona Road. That's coming from the state. The McCoy and Sain completion going up the intersection of McCoy and Sain and then connecting down to the rest of the Sain reconstruction is already obligated. So there's no concerns there. The tunnel, the bike tunnel under Rimrock Road, under County Highway MM, he said is also not a concern. I believe that funding is also obligated. The bus rapid transit expansion is another question. So of course the current BRT is already complete. We're now in, or the Metro Transit is now in design stages for the next 1 or 2 expansions of the BRT system. That design is still moving forward with MPO, and the expansion would be supported by federal funding. So I don't think there's any indication yet that the federal funding for that expansion is at risk, but if it were to be delayed in some way, at least the planning would be done. So whenever funding is available, we could just kind of pick that right back up. But at least as of right now, the BRT expansion is still going forward. And then similarly, the TAP grant was federal pass-through dollars, but that's already obligated. So we're going to be able to complete the TAP grant this year. But those are the items we discussed. There's, at least in the next couple of years, there's no public works projects impacting the bike network that we're expecting to have any delays due to questions over federal funds. And then I know Mark just requested a discussion on whether any additional bike or walk audits have been conducted since the December meeting.
I have done some. I just need to get you the paperwork. It's actually been very enlightening.
What did you check out?
Largely it was my commuting route home, plus just walking largely in the Seminole neighborhoods, but more from a winter perspective. And it is definitely some different comments that I would have in December and January than I might in July. Especially in terms of
interesting.
The passability of some of the paths is not great.
Were you doing the audit after any of our brief snowfalls?
One of them would have been, yes. Had I not had studded tires on the bike, it would have been impassable.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Kelly?
I've done some informal ones on my route and just generically in the neighborhood. And what I have noticed is that anytime a multi-use path intersects a roadway, the curb and gutter area is usually not done so that it's passable unless the weather is perfect. So if a person were in a wheelchair, they would really have trouble because there's usually the stormwater sewer area is slightly uphill from almost all of those spaces. So there's always a puddle or a little icy area where a lot of the paths intersect the roadways. For instance, specifically on Kinsale, when you go under the tunnel, McKee's tunnel, and then you get to the Kinsale area, that intersection is always horrible. And then we noticed that the sidewalks along Leopold Way, when it's the highest density and there are the most kids who live there and need to just walk those sidewalks to school, those are 4-foot wide sidewalks, whereas out in my neighborhood where there's low density and no destination to walk to, we have the nice wide 5-foot wide sidewalks. And I'm just wondering why. not only are they 4-foot wide sidewalks, but they're all sort of slanted.
I mean, that would definitely be a question for, I guess, for Ross. My guess is it just has to do with the age of the neighborhoods. That 4-foot sidewalk was standard when the neighborhoods around the old way were constructed, and we haven't revisited that. I'm not. I don't know what the sidewalk refinishing schedule looks like, if those are slated to be looked at anytime soon. But I think they're just narrower sidewalks because it's an older neighborhood.
Yeah, that feels like the equity committee might be interested in hearing about that, because it is one of the highest density, highest traffic places where people need to walk, and it's not very walkable.
So just to clarify, with where multi-use paths cross roadways, it's not that like with street sweeping debris is being left, it's just that the grading is such that there's usually water or ice that's making it tough to cross.
Both.
Both,
but,
okay.
But a lot of it is that the engineering seems to be that the lowest spot is right at the downspout from, or where the multi-use path spits you out onto the roadway. Some of it is definitely debris builds up, but there's also places where if you were to just roll a ball, the lowest spot it would go to would be at the output from the path.
Yeah, I wonder what could be done there, because I know with just the profile of a road, you're always going to have a little bit of a crown, and you're going down to a low point at the curb, the gutter pan, and I wonder where there's a multi-use crossing, if there's a way to avoid that.
Well, it just feels like the height of where they put the storm gutter or the stormwater outlet is higher than the outlet. You know, it's like 2 feet over, but it's uphill, and that doesn't seem like an engineering best practice.
I think arguably raised crosswalks would be a solution to that. And it also serves a traffic calming purpose. That it becomes a de facto traffic hump or speed hump.
Yeah, excellent idea.
Or even where you can't avoid it, I'm just looking at I'm looking at Google Maps where the McKee multi-use path crosses Commerce Park Drive, and you do have a situation where the sidewalk is higher, it slopes down towards the road, so that would be a low point, except that Commerce Park Drive then slopes away. So the lowest point is going to be, it's still the curb, but it's going down the road a little bit away from the multi-use path, and I wonder if there's a way to change grading and sloping so that the multi-use path is just never crossing where it's completely level. You always got just a little bit of a tilt one way or the other, just to try to direct water away from the center of a path.
Go ahead, Jim.
This is Jim. I would be a little concerned about that, though, for wheelchair users. If it's tilting one way or the other, are the wheelchair users going to have a problem crossing there?
Yeah, I'll mention that to Ross.
I think it's also
I
was gonna say it's particularly noticeable this time of year, especially if we had snow. When you get into the thawing and freezing cycle, and then water builds up there, and then it's glare ice in the morning because it's pooled there.
Right.
Okay, are there any other updates on Public Works projects? If not, we can move on to the bicycle pedestrian plan update.
I don't have a ton here. Everybody was kind of looped in December when we met with MSA. We've been continuing to have some conversations. Right now, the big thing is that I'm working with Dakota on getting some additional maps generated for the plan. MSA is looking at the 2017 plan to pull over as much narrative as is still applicable. And then a little bit behind right now on going through with Ross some CIP items that we want to make sure we include. Hey, these are some projects that the city has planned over the next few years that we want to make sure are noted in the plan. And then we did just have the Parks and Open Space Plan update completed. Brad finally got that done, so I need to go through that plan and see if there's any language that needs to be pulled out and included in the bike and ped plan update as well. Now that that's done, but that's sort of where we're at. Yeah, right now I believe. Let's see. Oh, we did get. I think everyone was included on this. Let me know if I didn't send out a calendar invite. I think I did, but March 14th, that Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. is going to be the big working session with commission members and a couple folks from Bike Fitchburg and MSA. So that'll be the next big opportunity to kind of put everyone's heads together and really get some solid work done on fleshing out the final details of this plan. But yeah, it does look like I sent a calendar invite, so hopefully everybody's able to block that off and be there on Friday, March 14th.
Yep, I got it. Okay, thank you for that update.
A quick question.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Yep.
Phil, I know the DEI committee has been kind of engaged. Have you gotten any feedback from them yet, or where's that stand?
I haven't gotten any feedback yet. I reached out to both Sarah Olson, who heads up the Equity Committee, and Jessica Wolf, who heads up the Healthy Neighborhoods Committee, and kind of shared the 2017 plan with both of them and the sections that I felt were the most relevant to those groups. And kind of gave both Jessica and Sarah the option. Do you want to kind of be engaged in weighing in on what needs to be updated for the 2025 plan, or do you just want us to come to you when we have the draft completed and let you review that? And Sarah was going to let me know. I think she was going to check in with the Equity Committee and let me know what the group felt, but I haven't heard back from her yet. And I believe it was going to be the same with Jessica, that she still wants to talk to the Healthy Neighborhoods group before she committed to how they wanted to be engaged.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then one other thing, I guess I was going to just put this in the staff update, but is relevant to the bike and ped plan, so I'll mention it now. I will be going on parental leave again this spring, so the plan was to have this bike and ped plan completed sometime during April or early May. I'm going to be out for a few weeks. Pretty much I'll be out for the entirety of April, so I don't think there's any chance we get the update done before then, which means I can have Brad fill in a little bit and take point on this plan for April, but my guess is that there's a little bit of a lull while MSA kind of finishes up some draft items, and we'll look to jump back into it once I'm back for a few weeks again in May and June, and hopefully have the plan completed, hopefully in May, but if not, certainly we should be able to get the update done in June. So if things go dark on the bike and ped plan update for a little bit, that'll be why. Also talking with some staff about what that means for the April 2nd Bike and Ped Commission meeting, because I won't be able to attend that. So I'm hoping I can find somebody else from staff who can be here for that.
You have a new little one on the way?
Yep.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Congratulations, Phil.
I'll come back in May super rested and in complete control of my mental faculties, I'm sure.
Sure will.
I think,
Congratulations.
I think what I've heard is, especially with the second one, it's really easy the second time, right? That's.
Oh yeah, the second one was so easy.
You barely even notice you added a second one to the mix.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's what they say.
I think it's exponential, not linear.
Don, why did you say it like that?
Well, it may be, maybe even though it's two, it's not double the work. It's, the sleep
One
is
of
shorter, and it just
yeah.
seems like laundry multiplies. But it
Well,
depends
you
on who
can't.
does the laundry.
The big thing is you can't tag team anymore. You don't ever get a break because one of you's in the baby and now one of you's in the toddler. The thing I've heard the most is that people have said actually it was more of a life change to have a second one than it was to have a first.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
That will.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna be real frazzled next time you see me. Well, I guess next time will be March, so yeah, we're good until then.
All right.
But yeah, Andy, that's everything I got for the plan update.
Okay, great. Next item is the presentation to the Committee of the Whole. So previously, back when this was still just the Bike Committee, there was a presentation made to the full council at the Committee of the Whole. I know Mark has requested that we have that again. I know he reached out to Joe, who said you were talking to Gabriella about the possibility of getting us on the agenda. I don't know if there's much more than that other than to TBD. Our hope is to just let the full city council know all of the work we're doing here and just give an update on where we're at with kind of all the things we've been discussing, like the bike plan and B-cycle. Phil, missing anything there?
No, I made a request to our council president, and just so you have a sense of the process for committee of the whole meetings, they're led by the council president. Every April, a new council president is selected. It could be Walter Gearhart again if the council chooses, but it could be somebody else. So she's essentially kind of in the driver's seat for the February and March meeting. March is packed. February is there is a presentation on stormwater, but there could be some room to put what was requested as a 30-minute presentation to Committee of the Whole. We just need to get confirmation as to whether that could occur because the meetings are 2 hours. So I think as long as stormwater is not more than an hour and a half, we should be good. Those meetings fall on the fourth Wednesday of every month at 6:30. So that in this case would be the 26th at 6:30 p.m. And I'll see whether we're good to go if we go at the beginning or the end. I'll double check.
Great, thank you for doing that, Joe. All right, 4F is further discussion of walking priorities. And this is one Mark was hoping to lead, and Phil, he reached out to you about any additional information.
He did not. I know. Let me check his last email. He had a couple.
I know he said he was talking.
Couple little bits of commentary in there.
I know he said he was talking to the mayor about walking, especially since I think that has been a priority of hers. And I think he was also going to try to reach out to Healthy Neighborhoods, the senior center, as well as the school districts, just to get some ideas for doing organized walks, as well as looking at possibly using the hub in the future as kind of a central point for doing organized walking events. But that's really all I had from Mark on this topic.
Yeah, his commentary was, and this may be pretty close to verbatim how he would say it if he were here. What he said in his email was, we need to get this group actively involved in tackling the new walking component of this commission. Whether it's surveys of the healthy neighborhoods, visiting schools around safe routes to school, or other. We've not made any progress here. So yeah, he really is just looking to kind of kickstart discussions on making sure that the Bike and Ped Commission is not just talking about the pedestrian component, but actually actively working on some of those priorities. I don't think there was anything beyond what you mentioned there, Andy, I don't think there was anything else particular that he had in mind. It's just kind of a reminder that is a charge of this commission, and make sure that it's being centered.
This is Jim, and I think I would agree that we need to start promoting walking and doing some walking. One of the problems is some of the infrastructure things we're talking about. I mean, if we don't have good infrastructure, and if there's problems with some of the infrastructure, people aren't going to want to walk if there's narrow sidewalks and, other different things. I mean, I think this is kind of a two-pronged approach, is looking at the infrastructure, but also, promoting the walking, but also kind of making sure we have good infrastructure so people actually can get out and walk.
I would agree. Okay. Maybe I think this really probably would be an item to maybe when Mark's back at the next meeting, have him further elaborate on.
Yeah, I think so.
What he wanted to do. Item number 5 is a report from the department. It's 5A would be our council update. So, Alder Maldonado, if you have anything to add.
I don't have anything to add. I know that some of you are aware, if you're on CETA or have been on CETA, that the mayor has been going to different committees and providing her strategic priorities. I believe she did present to CETA. I don't know whether any time was made for, or any arrangements were made for bicycle and pedestrian committee. But if you watch I believe it was the last CETA meeting in January, part of the presentation was dedicated to kind of laying out her priorities. So please feel free to watch that meeting on the FACTv YouTube channel. And if there's any things that are in there that are missing, and from your perspective, or that you have questions about, feel free to reach out to her.
She's always welcome. Maybe I'll reach out to her and just see if she's interested in coming. But yeah, I think especially some of her priorities related to healthy neighborhoods and just kind of promoting community would really dovetail nicely with the work that this commission is doing. Okay. 5B is our staff update to the commission. Phil?
Yeah, I got a couple extra notes here. So mentioned the April meeting. I'm trying to find somebody else to cover that. I think the best bet's going to be Ross, but I'll just have to make sure he's available. Possibly Deanna Schmidt would be able to take it as well. We'll just kind of see, and if there needs to be a change to the meeting timing, I'll talk with Mark and we'll let you know, but hoping to keep it on April 2nd. Mention the next Spike and Ped plan working session meeting March 14th, 3 to 5 p.m. So we do have numbers. I didn't include this in the B cycle update, but we do have some numbers on the checkouts last year with our stations. We had a couple of stations that were really strong. The Oak Bank, kind of that Seminole and McKee station was the most checked out. We had almost 3 checkouts per day from that site. The Wyndham Hotel at Hatchery Hill was also pretty good. McKee Farms Park, Swan Creek Park were strong. Dolly Bike Hub. Some that have not gotten so much use include the community center and the senior center that we added last year. And I've been talking with B Cycle about how to promote those better. I talked with Jill McCone at the senior center about that, and she said they didn't really do a lot of education. So one thing that I think we're going to hope to do this year is a little bit more education and promotion of B Cycle. If there's a way to loop in like Bike Fitchburg and the Bike and Ped Commission on that education, I think that would be great. Certainly it's a great opportunity to be active. The e-bikes make it easier for seniors, I think, and so if we can better promote the B-cycle there, especially we've got the connections with a B-cycle station at the Limerick housing over on Lacey and Haight Farm Road, as well as now on Traceway by the Hub, that puts those stations right by the High Line senior apartments. So some good good options for seniors to get out and ride these bikes. And if there's a way to better promote those, we'd love to figure it out. And if anybody in the commission, if anyone on the commission moving forward wants to help with that, that would be fantastic. The last item is that the sustainability plan is also nearing completion. So we have the draft. I've been meeting with department heads and key staff on that one. I met with admin last week. We've got a plan to get the sustainability plan to council on February 25th to refer out to committees, and then I'm hoping that we can get it approved by council March 25th before I go out on leave. There are probably 13 different committees, boards, commissions that would be interested in reviewing this plan, and we can't really feasibly have 13 separate meetings where I show up to present this. So we're kind of talking about what makes the most sense with Chad and Adam, as well as with the mayor. Certainly, I don't expect that the Bike and Ped Commission will have a separate presentation of the sustainability plan, but whenever the plans, whenever meetings with committees are scheduled, we'll make sure to let everybody on this commission know so that you're able to review and attend one of those other meetings and weigh in. I'm not sure exactly what the structure will be like. If we have 3 or 4 kind of higher level board committee meetings, and anybody who would sort of be sub to those committees would be invited to join those, or what it'll look like, that's got to be determined. But at some point there will be committee presentation of the sustainability plan, and I'll make sure to let this group know when and where that'll be so that you can join in.
Circling back on your first
Everything
item, just circling back on your first item with the senior center. We've been doing the rides for Joe for 2 years now, planning the third one. Maybe that's an opportunity. And frankly, that's something I was kind of hoping would happen, is that we would host these bike events at the senior center, and people would show up who have bikes, which they have been doing. But I was really hoping that having the B-cycle station there, that seniors who are maybe driving to the senior center or otherwise getting there by some other means would then take advantage of the B-cycle station and join us on the rides. And I think that has happened with maybe one person so far. So that might be an opportunity to outreach and say, even if you don't have a bike, you can still join us on these rides. We intentionally designed them in such a way to have multiple route options, to have sort of the longer route option for people who are a little more avid, and then have a shorter route option for people who maybe haven't been on a bike in a couple of decades. And so that might just be a case of myself or Mark or Phil or some combination of people just going over there, talking to Jill, and letting the seniors know who aren't otherwise engaged in that activity to join us.
Yeah, I like that. I think Jill would be open. I can't imagine she wouldn't be open to that. I know that she was really excited about getting the B-cycle stations there, but she's just not she herself is not a biking promotion person, so I don't think that she's got in her bag of tricks or even in her schedule to have time to do a lot of promotion of this. So any assistance we could give would be helpful. Yeah, that's a good overlap though. I hadn't thought about that.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Phil for the staff update? So we're rapidly approaching Lizina Quorum here.
Yep, and it looks like we've lost both Kelly and Dawn. I missed that they both stepped out in the last couple minutes. Doesn't look like we have anybody from Bike Fitchburg for their update either.
No, I don't have Steve or Tony in the room with me. I think we can move on to agenda item 6, which is announcements. The next meeting will be April 2nd at 7:30 a.m. Phil will be working to find a staff replacement for us while he will be enjoying his rest and relaxation, paternity leave.
Exactly. It's a little staycation.
All right, unless there are any other announcements, move on to agenda item number 7, which is adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
Thanks for leading.
Happy Wednesday.
No problem.